Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to another edition of the Purple Couch Podcast. Today, we're going to take a little different spin on this podcast episode. We've collected a bunch of questions that we've received over the last few series, and we're going to answer those questions today for our parents. So come on down, sit back, relax, and get your questions answered today. Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to the Purple Couch Podcast. Today, we have collected some of the questions that our families across the country have sent in to us to answer during this podcast episode. So, as your host, Puzzlebox Pam, I'm going to cue these questions to Dr. Manny and Missy Owens today, our clinical directors here over at Puzzlebox and Kaleidoscope Interventions, and we're going to let them deep dive into your parent questions. So guys, if any of you all have questions just like these families did, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you on the next episode. All righty. So we've got these wonderful questions that our parents have asked. Are you ready to dive deep?
Let's do it.
First one. Yes, I am crisscross applesauce. I'm just going to let you all know because my feet don't touch the floor. So I'm not gifted like Missy and Manny here with the vertical height. So I sit crisscross applesauce because otherwise my feet would be hanging. So there you go. Question number one.
Why are you in that?
Yes, why don't you sit? I was like, I can't touch the floor. So here are some common questions that we have had come through, and we see these almost, I would say, weekly with some of our parents, especially new parents to the Puzzlebox family. So we want to share our answers with our subscribers here. So let's get the ball rolling. These common questions, I'm going to giggle because as a parent, some of them I've experienced myself. One of them that has come up recently is we have a few families that have gone through the ABA process. Their children are doing wonderful back in, the school setting. The kids are well-mannered. As soon as they get home, it's, all hell on wheels. And honestly, it's called puberty. So our children on the spectrum and neurotypical children, when they get these hormone bursts, and I think that's kind of the best way to say it, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's oh man, what's happening right now, both for the kid and for the parents.
Exactly. And parents, one of the biggest things we want to tell you is that this is typical. This happens to all children, not just your child that's on the spectrum or your child that has dyslexia. Puberty hits us all, and all of us have it at different stages and ages. What I can say is I think we unanimously agree on this side that children on the spectrum sometimes develop a little bit faster than some of your neurotypical children. And again, I would say personally, it comes from the sensory overload because they're more tapped in, tuned in onto that level with our children. Don't you agree?
Oh yeah. And I think too, part of that's the diet. It's a big part of that as well. Actually, the amount of hormones are thrown into the food that our kids eat, especially kiddos on the spectrum, tend to be a bit more picky. So with the limited food options, that could bring it on sooner than
absolutely here. Well, I'm an advocate here of what we put into the body goes straight to the brain. So especially during the hormonal stages, whether we're looking at females or males, again, Missy makes a very good point, our diet. And we're going to help some of you parents out here in a little bit. One of our guests that we're scheduling out specializes in nutrition and diet, and we need to really look at how that impacts our children today. I don't know about you all, but with all of the GMOs, the bioengineered food that's now out on the market, what used to be for my home a 30-minute grocery run is now like an hour and 15 minutes because I'm reading the labels of everything. I almost feel like a flashback from when Loki was like 2 and we were on gluten-free, casein-free, everything. Yeah. And I'm like, well, here we go. Maybe that was just some prepping time to get me ready for where we are today. Parents, read those labels. It's so important now. The limitations that are being put on our food products microplastics, things that you can read on Dr. Google, they do affect our children, especially during hormonal spikes. I will be the first one. We've all seen the commercials of women that need to have their bonbons during that time of the month. Well, think about our children. Our children are going through those exact same hormone bursts. We also know that the prevalence of girls on the spectrum is lower, but when it hits our girls, it seems to hit with a vengeance. And I think that, again, it's triggered by hormones.
Yeah. And I wonder what you all think, but for me, both as a dad and then as a behavior analyst, probably one of the trickiest part to navigate in the whole puberty game is if the kids are quiet about it. And it's that quiet storm.
I was that person. I didn't speak about it.
They don't want to talk about it. The parents, as a parent, as a beast, you can smell it. You can sense it. You can see they're taking a lot longer in the bathroom, or they're navigating to be individual, solo, quiet in the corner as opposed to being social and things like that. Or they're just playing differently. They're not playing the same way they used to, or they're not interacting the same way. And it's that quiet storm. And navigating that has always been, in my mind, probably the trickiest part, is navigating the quiet storm. I only know how I've done it, and it's an homage to what you've taught me, as what you've done with Loki, is just be upfront with it, talk about it, be open to discuss it.
Absolutely.
So that way, even though they're quiet about it, don't be the quiet parent. Be the active parent, be the talkative parent about these kind of uncomfortable topics, because if you don't bring it up, they're not going to bring it up.
Well, and they'll also go to Dr. Google. We talk about Dr. Google in our podcast, but remember, our kids are masters at technology because they have grown up with technology and this technology boom. I'm sitting back and I'm kind of giggling because I can tell you some stories about my son and I, especially the puberty. It hit him around 11. So he was early, an early bloomer. Again, what we're going to talk about with our boys. We've talked about rocket ships. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The volcanoes in the bathroom. Those are little key triggers that you can do to make a very uncomfortable conversation a little bit easier. But parents, do not sway away from those hard conversations because they're going to get answers somewhere. I have been asked very poignant questions on why certain things are called certain ways. We've heard it not just from my son, but it was almost like setting the precursor for our other kids coming up. And I've been able to share these stories and tips with our parents. And living proof here, our kids will ask you questions when you open that door that you need to be prepared for. I have had instant conversations where I go, okay, take the mom hat off, put the administrator hat on, put the teacher hat on. Don't be mom. Don't be mom. He's opening up to you. And I would give that advice to all of our parents listening and watching.
Definitely.
I sit back and I think about you with your 5 kids. You've got your different genres going on, but you've got boys and you have girls. I was a single mom raising a boy. And so
that'd be scary.
Oh, trust me. I figured, okay, if, I had my pediatrician when I was little, Dr. Masagi, and I don't think he's living anymore. But he always told my mom that, and I was a very smart, there was no quiet. I didn't hide in the corner. It was, if you were old enough to ask the question, then don't baby the answer. Give them the real answer. Because if they are at that point developmentally that they can come to you and express to you their concern or their question, then you need to elaborate with them and give them the knowledge. It's just like what we say here, knowledge is power.
Oh, yeah.
So what advice would you two give? I would tell parents, be open, be honest, and do not make anything taboo. I have been asked about CBT, not CBD. And ooh, driving in the car with the death grip on the steering wheel. Ooh, how do I answer this? Well, everyone has different tastes. Everyone has different personalities. And what one person may like, you may find completely gross. You may think it's disgusting, but this is what makes us humans.
Yep.
We all can have different experiences. See how easy that was diverted? Those type of conversations where you're not placating the child, you're being open and honest with them. But sometimes, and I've had to do it, you go to that Urban Dictionary and you're like, oh, wow. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you know about that? Well, maybe you can teach mom. I'm like, I need to be more hip, but we see that. We see it every day. So what advice would you give our parents? We're blessed here because we have both the masculine and feminine energy. And we've got a little with me. I can go with both sides here. So what would you tell our parents?
My main advice, whether you're a father or a mother, is because of my experience with the 3 older kids that are very different when it comes to, and they're all in the puberty age now, is know their learning style. So how do they speak? Are they mature enough to have certain gross but in detail, in-depth conversation? Or are they at the surface level that they just need kind of an idea? And I think that helps, knowing their learning style. My oldest is a very smart, energetic, and very intuitive. So she doesn't need a whole lot of details. She'll get the gist. If you just kind of give her the surface, and she'll ask a question here and there. My 11-year-old girl doesn't ask a whole lot of questions. And that surface level, she'll get more confused if you don't give her more detail. My son, who's 9, going through the early stages of puberty, asks the why questions. And if you're not ready for those why questions, you're going to lose them. So his learning style is all about knowing all the whys, that you can muster that energy so you're prepared for that conversation. So just know their learning style, be prepared based on their learning style, and then kind of go with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're new to this part of it, but you get to deal with it with our children all the time. So though your little one isn't there yet, thankfully, you are, yes, but think about it. She's at our elementary school and she's in with our 6th graders, our 7th graders that are in the thick of it. So what advice would you give to our parents?
Something kind of piggybacking exactly, off of what Manny was saying, knowing what motivates a child. Like one of my kiddos who went through puberty, super scientific. So with her, we dove into the actual scientific biological processes of what was happening, picked it up immediately. She was good to go.
Very nice.
Other kiddos, you mention, he may start to bleed. They are white in the face. And so you got to know how to motivate them and how to approach things, like Manny was saying, on their level, and how to relate to them in regards to the puberty.
So parents, let me take a time out real quick. Menses is what she's talking about. Oh, that's the word. Oh my goodness. Aunt Flo coming to visit.
Yes.
The woman's period. Look, I told you during this podcast, we're going to talk about things that other parents, other podcasts will not talk about. Why? Because our parents need to know. How do I address that? You make a very good point with the scientific data behind it. But this can also be extremely scary to our kids. Letting you know, as a teacher, I had a situation happen that the little girl had not been prepared. Parents did not speak about this at all at home. And her period started at school.
No.
And she thought she was dying. She was terrified. She was embarrassed. So you got to remember, these are programs we're building in our children that they will carry with them, not just at that moment, but we're talking about 10 years from now. As a young adult, she'll still remember how that was handled. So parents, again, remember, you're the first line of defense there. And single moms and single dads. We're talking about boys too. If they have a television, they've seen a tampon commercial. If you have a television, they've seen a maxi pad commercial. Please give them some education. We're being so stringent now in the school system on what we can say, what we can't say. And you can watch any political debate right now on what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. Parents, it starts at home. It starts at home. Knowledge is power. Don't let your children be afraid of this. Use your own personal experiences. Talk about when you were a little girl or when you were a guy. Even as a mom of a male, I had to explain to him that there are things that women go through that boys do not have to go through, and it's part of our system. Oh, okay. Thanks, Mom. I don't need to know anything else about that. I don't have to deal with it. And then I tell him, like, well, you're going to be married one day, or you're going to have a girlfriend one day, or a boyfriend one day, and you may have children. And you don't say whether you're going to have a boy or a girl. And so you're going to need to be able to prepare the girl no matter what. What does that also do? It begins empathy, compassion, things that we want our children to have, and we need to let them know. On the woman's side, everybody hears about, oh, it must be that time of the month. Oh, how cliche is that? Boys don't understand why you say that. Moms and dads in their household, oh, it's your mom's time. Just leave her alone. Really? Are we not past that at this point? So
deal with those is very important.
We do. We need to have those conversations. So sit down. Don't be afraid of it. Make it a game night. I'm sure there's some Cards Against Humanity out there somewhere.
Has to be a game out there.
That you can make it fun, or you can just pause the television when one of those commercials comes up. And it's an easy one. Hey, Missy, do you know what this commercial is about?
No idea.
Okay. So that's the doorway. Hey, Manny, you know what they're talking about there. We don't have to deal with that, but every woman in our life does.
Yeah.
You see, these are how easy the conversations can go. So just don't be afraid of those. And most of the time, your kids are waiting for you to have those conversations. It's kind of like Santa Claus, guys. I don't know about you, but we put my mom through hell. We knew about Santa Claus, and my sister and I were like, yeah, well, how does that happen? Let's see how big of a story Mom will make up about this. So we use that same analogy when we're talking about puberty. Have those conversations, have those discussions. I want to bring up, we did have one other thing, and it's in this realm of puberty. We had a handsome gentleman. I want to say beautiful, but he's a gentleman now. He's taller than I am. Very handsome young man. Same thing. He was wonderful at school. He's very wonderful with his parents, except for when those moments come. And now all of a sudden, the expressive language that he didn't used to have, now he comes up with, and he's being very direct in how he's feeling. I effing don't want to do this. Shut the front door. Okay. Mom's in crisis. What do I do? He can't say this. I'm like, why can't he? Okay. Your child didn't talk until he was 6, 7 years old. He's expressing himself. So now we just got to give him the proper way to say those things, but understand that he's still allowed to have intense feelings and emotions. And so we don't want our children, when they're going through puberty, to all of a sudden be, oh, keep it to yourself. That's the time you say, okay, go to your bedroom, yell as loud as you want to, let it all out. Once you get it out, then let's have a real conversation. But again, guys, for those of us that have lived in a neurodiverse world, some of these things are neurotypical, and it's okay. So, ready to move on to the next one?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, our next question that came from one of our moms, Miss Elizabeth asked, what are developmentally appropriate behaviors? So, I'm going to piggyback that into two of these questions, because the next question is, what's an autistic behavior? Okay, so I'm just letting you know, I've briefly went through these questions and I kind of chuckle inside of this, because what is autistic behavior? Moms and dads, it's every behavior that you're doing all on your own. Okay? My hand gestures, my eye movements, my sitting crisscross applesauce, these are all autistic behaviors. It's not really the behaviors that we're looking at. We're looking at what is the overload. What is the point that a child says, I can't handle this? What is the point that a child's sensory weighs the normal. Example, I could be sitting here like this whole time that we're talking. This would be what some people would consider an autistic behavior. Why? Because I'm calming myself down. I may be nervous. I may just really like the way this purple couch feels. But these can be seen as autistic behaviors. Don't touch my couch. Oh, that too could be an autistic behavior. No, this is mine. This space is all mine. Those are other little things that we could be looking at as autistic behaviors. But I think what we're really trying to dove into here is what would be developmentally appropriate. What are some of these things that we talked a little bit about, but let's elaborate on those. Yeah. So, Missy, I'm going to start with you. What are some things that you could be explaining to parents? Some of these telltale signs, some of these, I don't want to say inappropriate, because everything is appropriate in its own situation. Whether you're at home or whether I'm sitting here on recording or not recording, and this calms me down, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Having a fidget toy at your desk, nothing wrong with it. One of my Christmas gifts from my sister was this wonderful little fidget dinosaur that's, it's a dragon. I dearly love it to death. But I have no problem when I'm in year tax time. Where is that dragon? But we all find little things, and some people it's pin clicking. Yeah. So what are some of those things that you look at?
So I think first, before I dive into that, I want to talk about 3 things that Manny and I were kind of going over before. Is with all of these questions, our answers are going to vary depending on the context, the function, and what the goal is.
Oh, yes.
So depending on what type of context we're talking about, based on the function, the behavior, based on what the end goal is, our answers are going to vary. But in general, if we're talking about developmentally appropriate behaviors, it's going to change. I know you can Google it and it will give you a list of 0 to 18 months, you should be doing this. 18 to 24, you should be doing this. But it's not accurate. Kids develop at different rates. So I would say some big flags are going to be if your kiddo is maybe around the age of 3, hasn't really started to talk yet. Maybe he's not showing interest in peers. Daycare is a pretty good place where you can see a lot of that happening. If they're secluded, if they're just, I hate to say it this way, but acting differently from the rest of the kiddos, that can be a flag right there. Or it could be too that that's just not the right setting for the kiddo.
Correct. One of the things that she's talking about specifically would be the isolation. When cousins are around, because I know a lot of parents are keeping their children at home as long as they can before putting them into daycare or preschool. What you want to look at is with brothers or siblings or sisters or cousins, when you're around other children, do they isolate? Do they engage? Meaning, will they play with other kids? We've seen it. We've seen it happen. Legos. Kids could be playing with the Legos. Everyone's playing. Everyone's building. But Sally's over here making something all by herself. Johnny comes over and says, "Oh, Sally, I want that Lego." Okay. Keeps doing her own thing as if Johnny never even took. Could take it right out of her hand. And she's like, okay, doesn't matter. That's a sign, guys. Because when we're talking about toddlers and age bracket, this could be anywhere from 1.5 years, a year old. I've seen some babies with the death grip. Don't take my toy. Those are little things that you want to see. Even if there's no peers around them, if you're in a situation that you're at home with your child and you see that Sally is playing with her Barbies or with her, My Little Ponies or whatever the new, I'm aging myself here, the new Paw Patrol, and you take the Paw Patrol toy away, how does she react? Because if you do not have that stimuli that's around you, if you don't have other people that are around you that are engaging with you, then these are things that you, as the parent, as the caregiver, as the loved one, can do yourself to see, well, how's Manny going to react if I take that paper? We need to see those triggers because trust me, you would like that child to interact with you before they are in an environment with a kid and the kid gets the Lego taken away. And then you realize real quick, well, Sally didn't want that Lego to go anywhere.
Yeah. And I know that like psychologists and pediatricians, just as parents do, we look at like call them buckets of behaviors. So communication skills, their social skills. But something that Missy said that hit home for me is, kids develop at their own pace, at different paces. And for me as a dad of 5, it never came to more of a reality check than when I had the twins that are now 2.3 years old. They are preemies. They were born 34 weeks, and they are now in daycare with kids their age, but those kids are taller, bigger, more social, more active, less aggressive, less whiny, and it's just interesting to see. Doesn't make the twins any less at their own pace.
Correct.
They're just at their own pace. Kids that we work with, right, both early intervention, the elementary school, the junior high, they're in their own age bracket, but they're not at the same behavioral stage, if you will.
Absolutely.
But that's okay. They're just at their own pace. But those have been interesting moments for me, is to look at it that way, in comparison to kids their own age, but not necessarily just age. Look at it in terms of their social, their communication, their maturity rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the reasons that with our Aspire program, our academic program at Puzzlebox is not chronologically grouped. So in the public school system, when a child is between the ages of 5 or 6, they enter kindergarten. Well, at our school, between 5 and 6, they may not be ready for kindergarten. They may still be working on preschool. How do I sit at a table?
Mm-hmm.
How do I share toys? You can't have a child that's not developmentally ready to learn be expected to start memorizing, because that's a big flaw in our current academic setting across this country, is we teach our children to memorize instead of teaching for fluency.
Right.
And that is key all the way from the preemie, like your little ones, you're teaching them developmental skills at their pace.
At their pace.
And guys, let's hone on that. Just because older sister might have been potty trained and was already, using verbal cues and was already telling you exactly what she wanted by the time she was 18 months old. And then the son comes up and the little baby brother at 18 months is still, no, whatever she's got going on, I don't care. I love my Bob the Builder. We're having fun. We're building. I'm in my world. Why? Because he's developing at his pace.
Yep.
I wish 20 years ago there was someone out here telling parents that this cookie cutter mold was broken. I wish a parent, a colleague, a mentor, a teacher could have taken the time and told me as a new parent, Loki's doing just what Loki needs to do. And I think that's what we want to let our parents know, is that your children are doing what they need to do at their time, at their pace. As long as you are continuing to give them encouragement to allow them to strive, then you're right on target, mom and dad. So our next question.
Good one.
What advice do you give to start potty training? Oh, this falls right into what we were just talking about. I can tell you right now, as a mom, and I know you're going through it, we've all been through the wonderful potty training moments. Every situation, again, is different.
That's right.
And do not let the pressure of the school system engage you on the pressure that you're going to put on that child at home.
Yeah.
It will backfire. When the child is ready, you will notice signs. They'll be in the bathroom. They may follow you into the bathroom. They may be curious about the bathroom. They may start pulling on the diaper, pulling on the pull-up, or being completely naked.
Yeah.
And that is 100% okay. Those are the signs we want to see.
Yeah.
When you start seeing those signs, then you know, okay, Sally's ready. Johnny's ready. If they are scared, you do not force them on the toilet. Trust me, we 3 here on this couch, or couch and chairs, we've seen it. We have seen children that will hold because they're terrified. And then it can end up where they're in the emergency room.
Yeah.
And the impaction and the drama that comes with that, you don't want your child to go through.
Yeah.
So again, potty training comes at its own pace with the child. I think that's the best way to explain it. But once you do take that step and start potty training, understand that it is a process. It will take time. It will take patience. And every child is different.
Yeah.
We can only speak of our children and what we've experienced. My son was bowel movement potty trained by the time he was about 14 months old. He didn't want anything to do with what was coming out of his body. It was disgusting to him. It was a no, 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 no. I can remember. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So we had pull-ups. So by the time he was a year, he was in a pull-up, not a regular diaper. And again, this is where we're talking about all kids develop different.
Yeah.
But he wasn't until about 4.5 that he didn't have pee accidents. And for him, it was sensory. He didn't realize until he would start to pee that he had to pee. The sensation was not something that tactile, again, sensory, our kids on the spectrum, he couldn't realize. But then once he did, he'd have a meltdown because the pressure of, oh my goodness, I should have gone to the potty. And this is all self-inflicted. I can sit back now as a parent and go, oh, with my behavioral eyes and see the process that was going on that I wasn't aware of 16 years ago. And so I can see it in our little ones, especially at our early intervention center. You can now watch from across the room the telltales. And parents, trust us to tell you when you start noticing the signs, you'll know when your child has to go potty.
Oh yeah. The dance is well active. You can see the dancing, the movement, the eye contact.
Oh yes. Or leave me alone.
Yeah, or don't talk to me.
Just leave me alone. I'm doing my thing. Oh, are you now?
Yeah.
So those are some of the key things that you want to look at. But you also need to understand that a lot of our kids that are neurodiverse also have sensory issues that come into play.
Yeah.
And potty training becomes a big sensory issue. When we were talking about puberty and we were talking about having those conversations, you have to have conversations with your children about potty movements, bowel movements, urination. These must be conversations. Now, I'm going to really ring a bell here for some parents. Our children are curious. I know this is something that parents have talked to me in private about because they're embarrassed. They don't want to publicly discuss this with anyone. But yes, there are some kids that want to know what is coming out of their body. They are very curious about what is in the toilet. They're very curious about what's going on in that lower extremity of theirs. So talk to them about this. You can use stuffed animals. You can use Barbies. You can talk to them about their own human body. Again, parents, these are the conversations that you do need to have. Even if it's you're talking in Teletubby voices and you're doing it with your little playthings. Oh, they got to go potty. Oh, all the food that you had today now has to go because your body doesn't need it anymore. That kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we've seen it. We've seen it when they get scared and they're like, I don't know what that is. It smells bad. It looks bad. It's gross. And then you have other kids that are the complete opposite. That you could come into the bathroom and it could be all over the wall.
Yeah.
All over them. Yep. And we're shaking our heads because we've seen that too.
Yeah.
And moms and dads, that is okay. It is just a moment. I know when you're dealing with the cleanup, it's not just a moment. But it is in the development of your child.
Yeah.
And as much as people don't want to hear this, it's also normal. Okay? Your child is not going to end up being a sociopath or a serial killer or the next Dexter. You don't have that to worry about. This is just a human body experience. And you need to let your kids know what's going on. Now, there are some things that you should be concerned about. When I was talking about holding, you do need to pay attention because our children will hold their bowel movements. They'll hold their urination. But think about us as adults. How many of you go to the bathroom when you're at work? How many of you wait until you get home? So again, you need to keep it in relativity of what you do as an adult,
Yeah.
and then look at it as a child.
Yep.
Have your school, your preschool, or your daycare work with you. That again is working together as a community. You don't have to do that alone. There are lots of potty training programs that are out there. There are a lot of cartoons and videos and books. So to give my secret of potty training, I'm going to give Missy, have her give hers, and Manny give his. My personal secret to potty training is make the environment as friendly as possible. I have turned bathrooms into Mario Kart World. I have had them turned into Pokemon World. I think the latest one it wasn't Paw Patrol, it was Peppa Pig. That one was up at our early intervention campus when I was talking to a parent and explained to them that I took every Game Informer magazine that I could find and decorated the walls completely. And we spent an entire weekend, not we, but my son was naked the entire weekend when we did potty training. And he needed to feel the sensation. So the problem for him was that with the pull-up on, he would start to tinkle and then he would pee and he'd have the meltdown because he had already, and it was too late. So we spent the weekend with no diaper on at all. And yep, carpet cleaner, be ready, because as soon as that little tinkle, 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 then he would run and we'd make a big deal about it. Oh, we're getting to the Mario Kart. Get to the Mario Kart. Get to the Mario Kart. And then he would sit there and he would be able to pay attention to everything that he loved that was in his environment, and not how scary that hole down to wherever it goes, that must be the hole to the universe, because as a kid, we flush and we don't know where it goes. So we made it fun. And within that weekend, he was able to then understand what that sensation was. And it did. We had little pee marks to the toilet. We had to shampoo the carpets. But guess what? Potty training was done over one weekend. But it was dedication, and it was understanding that this was the mission, this was the goal, and we weren't giving up. The worst case to do, parents, is be frustrated and then put the pull-up back on. Go get underwear.
Yes, sir.
Let them ruin the underwear, but at least they'll feel the sensation. They'll start to understand, and then you'll see them not want that pull-up. You'll see them not want that diaper, because those underwear feel so much better. So that's my tip and trick as a mama. What about you, Manny?
Well, mine similar. So it has to do with sensory related. So I've found now I'm going on my fourth experience, right? So the twins I count as individuals because they are not the same. So I wasn't around for Hope. She's my adopted daughter, right? So I wasn't around when she was that young. But with the 11, the 9, and now the twins, very different. But what was similar across all of them was the sensory experience of going potty training. So with Sabrina, who's now 11, super easy, no big deal. For Aiden, it was the curiosity of everything. The water, I can turn this on. Oh, wow, where does that go? Oh, the toilet, it flushes. Well, that's cool. Can I flush it with toilet paper? Can I just put the toilet paper all the way in? And he was like all about everything. And everything he needed to figure it out. A little engineer, right?
Don't know where he gets that.
No. But
Both his mom and dad are behavioralists.
Yes, that's right. And so he got past that, but we had to figure that out. With the twins, which I also find is similar to our kids in our early intervention program, it's the sounds. And the sounds are almost overstimulating. So the sound of the toilet flushing, the sound of the water, the lights, and all that. So Junior has had a harder time than Viviana, out of the twins, the girl. The girl, no, you say, you want to go potty? She'll potty, and she'll run to the potty. Junior will run to the potty and then stop before going to the potty, and he's struggled with that part. But it's the lights, turning on the lights and the sounds and all that. And I find that's true with our kids in our early intervention program, specifically a couple of kids, the sound of when you turn on the lights and the fan and everything. So one of the tips that I've been trying to do with the early intervention program, as well as my own kids, is introducing those sounds, even though it's not potty time.
Oh,
So
yes. Mhm.
coming to the bathroom, turning on the lights and then turning them off and just letting them experience those sounds. So it's not scary,
Mhm.
but at first it's scary. So getting them to what we call desensitize, right? Desensitize to
Mhm.
all of those sensory overload things. So that way, when it is time to potty, it's not a big deal.
Absolutely.
And it may take several times to do that. But once they get through that hump, then I find that introduces that world of potty training.
I
That's
was
my
even
tip.
going to say mood music. I know
Oh,
that,
mood
you
music,
know.
yeah, mood music's good.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
why
think
not?
about this
Why
then.
not?
How many, and I don't want to put this, but older gentlemen,
Mhm.
that cliche that you watch on every single one of the Chevy Chase movies, you know, we got to grab our magazine and we're like, well, where are you going?
Right.
Are you going to go read your newspaper outside with a cup of coffee?
Mhm.
You know, but and
Why
again,
not?
when we're talking about desensitizing the kids, that's the same thing adults have done
Yeah.
without the terminology behind it. Oh, so I need to relax.
Mhm.
I need to focus on something, not of what I'm doing, but something else. So my body relaxes. And then I can take care of my business and go on about my day.
Right.
So we're programming, again, that word, we're programming our children even at this early stage. I'm going to keep saying that to you, moms and dads, because I really want to hone in on that. You have to remember that at this age, your children, you are the teacher. They are watching everything that you're doing. They may not mimic it, you may not see it, but you're building this foundation for them just in your daily life.
Yeah.
What about you, Missy? How's that going in your house?
Going pretty well, actually. Definitely daycare was a big help to get her initially interested in going potty. And something that we do is anytime my husband or I go to the bathroom, she's immediately following us in there. And so she'll sit and watch. Sometimes I'm a little bit like, it's getting too much, my friend. But we let her watch us go. And then it's like, oh, mommy just peed. Now we flush. And so that showed her like, hey, this is normal. And then something else we did, we actually got a mini version of a toilet that we have in the living room right in front of the TV. So she knows, oh, if I sit on the potty and go, get Cocomelon.
Oh.
And so that she's been peeing pretty consistently on it, actually, pooped a few times. But she's fully capable of telling us that she has to go and when she has gone.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's trying to make it not shameful at all either. And not say, it's normal, it's fun. It can be cool. Look, you can sit on the potty, watch TV. Life is amazing. Why not do this all the time?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm sitting here and I'm holding back the laughter. It reminds me of a story. And parents, you'll enjoy this one before we go to break. When we're teaching potty training, please understand that children, like Missy was saying, the potty could be in front of the TV, the little, the training toilet. Be prepared for Home Depot, Lowe's.
Oh, gosh.
I just want to bring this up because I know this happened to a family.
Oh, she's going to do it.
And the child was potty training at home. And so what they were doing, the same thing that Missy, so that they were desensitizing the toilet because the toilet can be scary. You know, like I said, you flush, where's it go? Kids don't know. They don't understand plumbing. They just know there's a hole with water. And if you hit the button, it goes and it disappears. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had kids flush things down the toilet and you have to call the plumber. Well, when we're at our home stores, I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said the two major ones, but when we're at our home stores, please remember there are lots of toilets available. And to have your hand on little Johnny or Sally, because they may just pop up on one of those toilets very proud of themselves, trying to do their due. And the only reason I say that is because I do know a story of a family that happened to. And I'm chuckling inside because the dad came over to the mom and was like, we've got to get the hell out of here. Yeah, was the comment. And I was like, you did what? And they were like, look, she sat on the toilet. I was so proud of her. I couldn't find her. I came back. She was sitting there. She'd already done her business. What was I supposed to do? The dad picked the kid up, ran out of the store, grabbed mom, was like, we got to get out of here. So on that note, moms and dads, remember that you've got to teach them the appropriate bathroom and housing availability because you may do that.
She's going to try to do it. She will.
So we'll be right back right after this moment. Hi, friends and family. Welcome back. So our next question from our mom was, my kid is a picky eater. What do I do?
I ain't gonna lie, this one's a great one for me right now because both of the twins are very picky, and we've been trying different things. So I'm gonna learn from you two because I've been trying different things. My older kids were not picky eaters. They eat everything. My 9-year-old boy, he's a carnivore. He eats whatever.
Well, my 18-year-old is a carnivore now.
Yeah.
Literally, he does pretty much the carnivore diet. Let's rewind. In my book, we talk about the wonderful food sensitivities. A lot of our children, and let's hone on to the question. My kid's a picky eater. So picky, in whose terms? Is that picky that I don't want my food touching? Is it picky and I don't eat anything green? Or I don't eat anything that has a mushy texture? So elaborating, because I'm reading you as the parent sent the question in. So I want to talk to all parents real quick. Food is a very hot topic, and we are blessed that we're going to have a nutritionist come in that has background that can talk to us about not only just food sourcing, but also supplementation and making sure our children are getting adequate nutrition, which is very key and important in our entire body and mind development. But to talk about the actual nuances of, it's time to eat. What are we going to move through? I want to be very, very poignant on this is because at the same time, a lot of our children are developing the neurodiversity symptoms is also the same time that we are introducing new foods to their bodies.
Right.
Scientifically, we can't allergy test a child until they're 18 months to 2 years old. So please, I can't stress it enough from a mom that had this happen. Be very cautious when you're introducing foods to our children. Remember that as soon as we go off breast milk or formula, whatever you have chosen in your home, and we start introducing solid foods to our kids, look at the sourcing of where that food is coming from. Especially in cereals and things along those lines now, really read those labels. So I can't stress that enough. So you're building the palate for the child. It depends. If the child has nutritional deficiencies or intolerances, then obviously you've got to gear the nutritional menu based on your child's needs. But parents, do not be afraid to expose your children, like Manny said, to all food types. I can tell you that when Loki was little and we go to hibachi, oh my goodness, he'd love the fire in the show, but half of my steak and rice would be gone. And so we were a very big rice family anyway because of all his food intolerances. Now at 18, he eats 0 carbs. And that's not because of diet. It's because of his personal preference. He does not because he couldn't digest any of the gluten from the macaroni and cheese that most kids grew up on, things along those lines. He just doesn't eat. So remember that as you're building their food library. So like you were saying, your one kid would eat anything. The other one, nope, I'm going to go to, I have 6 things that I eat, and I do not go past those 6 things. And most of them are chicken nuggets, hot dogs. I'm telling you because we see this all the time with our kids. French fries, hamburgers, chicken patties.
The brown food.
Yes, the brown food. I love hearing that. The reason we know this is because having a school that has a 90% population of neurodiverse students and trying to run a cafeteria was very challenging. Because parents, just like the mom of this question, do want to explore different food options, but feel very limited because this is all Johnny eats. Okay, so let's first talk about that. So then what Johnny eats, you need to make sure that you have prepared for him. Because number one, we do not want any children to go hungry. But how do we introduce? The best is peer interaction. I can tell you now as the teacher, Pam, with over a decade of being in the classroom, their peers will get them to eat food that you never will be able to.
Mhm.
Broccoli, green beans, green jello. And I say green because that normally is the deterrent for a lot of our kids. If they see their buddy, Mr. Manny over here, is eating those green beans, then you're going to watch Miss Pam may try one of those green beans because Mr. Manny loves them so much. Those are things that is their environment and their peers that we can actually use peer pressure to our advantage. So if you have nieces or cousins or nephews or siblings and one likes something that the other one doesn't, set them in front of each other. Put it on the other's plate or on a side plate if you have someone who has sensory issue with food. Never contaminate their plate.
Right.
Because that could be a whole nother crisis that you could divert simply by putting a little side plate. If there are things that they don't like, but you need them nutritional, hide them. Yep, I said it right here. I am the queen of quesadillas. That was my way of getting, yes, indeed. Cheese, whether you are vegan or not, there is different types of cheese, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, that you can use as a substitute. So depending on what your home dietary preferences are, you can hide it in the sauce. Or for my northerners, you can hide it in the gravy. The gravy will do it. So quesadillas are a great way. Mushrooms are wonderful to hide in quesadillas because of the texture. They melt down into the cheese. Grate everything up. You can't put a big, huge mushroom in the quesadilla and then be like, oh, I don't know why he found it. Because once you're found out, it's all over. It's all over. But you can hide things within food. Nutella is also another amazing substitute that you can use, especially if you're in a peanut environment where you can't have traditional peanuts. Nutella spread can work really nicely by another filler in hiding supplements, medication, things along those lines, especially with our kids that are extremely picky eaters. Supplementation in a powder form can work really nice in Nutella. And again, going back to the quesadilla. So those are talking about kids that have more medical need when they're looking at their dietary restrictions. So those are tips and tricks. So if you don't have medical need, you can still use those magic hands. The other part is, again, putting it in front of them. They may not eat it. Do not force it. I'm 47 years old and I can remember my grandma for making us eat stewed carrots. And you have no answer. I'm bullheaded. Could you figure that one? I can tell you I sat there for 4 hours. 4 hours. All my siblings and everything, they all got up from the table and I'm sitting there like, no, I'm not eating these carrots. Every time I would put it in my mouth, the texture, I would gag and no. And I'm one of those, if I throw up, then I'm going to cry. And it was like, no, I was not having it. It was like, and it was a texture thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm still, here I am entering into that, next part of my life, and I will not eat cooked carrots. Now, if they're raw, the crunchy, I'm 100. I give me as much raw carrots as possible. But cooked carrots, it's again a texture thing for me. So watch your children, watch it with textures. And just because a carrot's cooked, they may not like the texture of it. Give them the opportunity to have them raw. So again, it's looking at the way it's prepared as well. I don't do pies. I can make a mean pie. But again, the texture. Yes.
The mushy.
I don't do yogurt. Same way, it's that mushy that it instantly for me, it puts me off. Ice cream. I love ice cream. Absolutely love it. Soon as it starts to melt down, I'm like my kids. Nope. And you notice instantly my hands went like this. Oh, that could be one of those signs of autism. Do you see what I'm saying, guys? We just have to go back to looking at the behavior and looking at where's the content, where are they doing this, what's the function of the behavior, and where are they? Are they at home? If you're sitting at home and you're trying mom's potato soup and it tastes awful, it's not for you. And, it's so funny. I get ready to say that and I'm like, well, that's a learning. We need to learn that. Even at your safe environment, you need to be able to say, Mom, I really don't like this.
Right.
Dad, this isn't for me.
Yep.
I don't like this.
Yep.
Okay, you made a no thank you bite. We forget about that from the days of past, the no thank you bite. We need to get back into that.
Yep.
Because that's not just setting it at the table, it's setting it for life. There may be an experience that the child's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then you tell them, just try. And then if you don't like it, hey, we'll be done.
Yep.
My son did that with snowboarding. I wanted to ski. He wanted to snowboard. He comes down the mountain. We were out in the cold. And he looked at the guy and he was like, did you get that on film? And the guy's like, yeah, you're a natural. You got it. Mom, you got it on film, right? I'm going back to the room. It's too cold out here. I swear to you. But he did the experience.
And tried it.
And I'm like, okay. Of course, he wanted to get on his friends and tell them all about what he did, But he did it. He tried it and he moved on. Same way with our foods. Guys, kids are supposed to be picky eaters. And what you'll find true is that they also are very instinctual at such an early age. I can let you know, I can watch kids and they will pick and choose their food sources. And most of the time, if you give them a healthier option over a non-healthy option, if they've tried the healthier option, you watch that disappear. So again, it's all about availability and giving them options. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, something that resonated when you two were describing the yogurts and the pies that you don't like is I'm sitting here thinking, well, you guys could be classified as picky eaters too.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
100% am.
Right?
I will admit that I am.
Going
yes.
back to context, function, and goal. Is that a problem? Adults are picky eaters. There are things that I don't like to eat. So it kind of resonates with me because thinking of my 2 kids, the younger ones, I do a lot of the techniques you're talking about. Definitely put it in front of them, make sure it's available, and if they don't eat it, don't force it on them.
Right.
But at some point, I guess at one point or another, as a parent, you got to decide: is it okay? They don't like that broccoli, bean sprouts, whatever. My 9-year-old likes lima beans. He's the only kid in the house that likes lima beans. So, but every once in a while, he's like, "Can I have lima beans?" Where did you come from? Well, who eats lima beans? Nobody else eats lima beans here. But the 11-year-old likes sushi. Where did you come from? And she just one day tried sushi and she likes sushi. So it's all like you said, they're developing their palates. We're trying to help develop their palates at an early age, but then as they get older, they're still developing their palates. My palate has changed in my 40s versus my 30s versus my teenage years. So maybe you're right. I like that concept that everybody's a picky eater.
Everyone.
We're just trying to learn our palates.
Absolutely. And think about what we have learned about nutrition now as adults to where we were when we were, like you said, think about college life. Okay. But we also.
Freshman 15 is a real thing.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a real thing.
I remember my first apartment when my mom came in, and I don't even know if they sell it anymore. I had a gallon pitcher of Kool-Aid and I had my peanut butter with the spoon inside it. And that was it. And she's like, what is this? And I was like, Kool-Aid. And there's my protein. I was like, I'm good to go. And she was like, okay, all right. But our kids, when I was talking about our nutrition, if we think about everything that we did growing up, and then we look at this new generation that is coming out, my 18-year-old has boycotted certain restaurants that I love due to political affiliations. And so is he a picky eater or is he an activist? Do you see what I'm saying? So you look at those things and you're like, okay, but he's conscious of this.
Yeah.
So then we go back a little bit. Our kids here, because now that's college level. So now let's look at our high school kids. Our high school kids are all their own picky eaters. But as long as they have the knowledge, which they do, about nutrition, most of them can tell me more about what we shouldn't be eating and what we should eat compared to, my mother, or the generation before me.
Yeah.
So I think that the picky eater is, again, learned behavior from a generation prior to us that we've now taken into our home, and then we're trying to assimilate that down.
Right.
So again, it comes back. Everything has a behavioral aspect to it.
Yes.
And we're taking learned patterns of behavior and trying to instill them onto our children when maybe what we should be doing is giving them opportunities to develop their own patterns.
Well, it's like you say in your book too, and it's one of my favorite parts is we got to learn the way they learn. Learn the way they learn. So picky eaters is the same thing. Well, they're learning what their palate is instead of us trying to instill our palate on them.
Well, let's think about this. We joke about the carnivore diet. You'll hear it in my book. I joked about it with Logie. I was like, all he does is eat meat. That wasn't a thing 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Now we've got some of the best bodies in the world, and this is what they're doing.
Total protein diet.
Exactly. So then we also, let's rewind. We can go even further and we can talk about everyone is doing intermittent fasting right now. Well, that was in the Vedics 10,000 years ago, talking about making sure that we have no food in our stomach after 4 hours. So all of these little things that we are relearning. And I love that, relearning things from the past that were available, but we forgot it because it wasn't practiced in the home. So we're going to end today on that note. We've got so many more questions. We'll have to break this into a couple podcasts so that we can get all the family questions answered, because that's what we're here for. This question answer session is so important to me because we're able to truly come into your home. So send those questions to the Purple Couch Podcast, and we'll make sure that we answer your question next time. From our family to yours, Happy New Year!